So it is my pleasure to introduce Angela Foltz-Nordstrom. She will be presenting on your license to Wisconsin's wild side. Go Wild, Wisconsin. Just let me tell you a little bit about her so you'll appreciate her even more. So she is the Vice President of NIC, and in this capacity she works with federal and state executives to identify ways to improve the delivery of citizen and business services through digital government solutions. She has more than 20 years of experience working on policy, solutions, and technology to improve government efficiency, deliver results, and exceed the expectations of today's government customers. So now let's give another round of applause for Angela and her presentation.
Thank you. Good morning. I want to thank Derek and everyone for being here, and thank you especially to the previous panel for putting so much pressure on me, like to deliver. So we are so excited to be here and talk to you a little bit about the state of Wisconsin and what they've done to really focus in on the visitor experience. The Wisconsin DNR interacts with individuals seeking licenses and registration for outdoor recreation. But before we get started, I have a little bit of a confession. So I grew up in Montana. In fact, I'm a fifth-generation Montanan. So you would assume that I love hunting, fishing, camping, boating, being outdoors, right? Well, here's some pictures of me as a small child. I think they kind of tell a different story. Smiles, not so much. Enjoyment, not so much. So fast forward to about 5 years ago, and I find myself in charge of my daughter's Girl Scout troop, 18 second graders. You know what? We have earned cooking badges, sewing badges, art badges, and I look at these Nashville suburban girls that we call the bubble girls and think they've never stayed outside. They've never done any sort of camping experience. And I thought to myself, all right, Mom, it's time to get going. So we jumped in. And honestly, today's story about Wisconsin ties right into that. It's about taking a visitor experience and making it better. So let's talk about the state of Wisconsin so you can understand a little bit more about what they are looking at. The way Wisconsin went about transforming their outdoor digital experience is many ways like preparing a camping meal. So let's first look at who was coming. Wisconsin is the 23rd largest state. 65 million square miles. 46% of it is covered in forest, and over 11,000 miles is covered by water. They have, as you can see, 50 state parks, 43 state trails, 2 national parks. Outdoors is what Wisconsin is about. And the residents and the visitors that come there, they knew that that was important to them. In 2016, they reported that over 108 million visitors spent $1.6 billion in recreation. And you look at the hunting, close to 900,000 hunters. Not only are they spending $2.6 billion, but that equates to $1 billion to the state of Wisconsin economy in salaries and wages. The visitor experience in 2014, if you were to go to the state and try to get anything that you needed to do to recreate outside, required the visitor to, in essence, go to different tables in a room. They needed to know which table they had to go to get their hunting license, which table they needed for their fishing license. It was all up to the visitor to figure out what that was. Wisconsin knew they needed to set a new table, to think about that delivery and do it different. So now we know who's coming to the table. They know what kind of meal they want to prepare. So let's take a look at what the ingredients are. And they decided they needed to focus on the most important parts. First off, convenience. Today's outdoor recreationists, today's visitors expect things to be convenient. Efficiency. There's not a government out there, local, state, or federal, that's not trying to find ways to be more efficient, either in the delivery of their services or in the costs associated with the services themselves. Legal compliance, it's really important. The states have so many steps that they have to go through to make sure that a person can hunt, can fish, can get the license that they need to, that the individual, the visitor who's getting it, knows where they can then use these pieces. And most importantly, a positive visitor experience no matter what device the user is coming at it with. Also, Go Wild knew that they needed to look at internally. What do their folks that are out in the field or in the offices need to happen? So here to the left is a list of everything that this solution needed to include. These were all the ingredients that, as I was talking about before, were required that the visitor had to go and figure out where to get this information. Whether it's the recreational vehicle registrations, whether it's a lottery, whether it's commercial licensing, and most importantly, you've got retail agents, not only in Wisconsin, but also outside of Wisconsin that are using it as border states. So the next thing that Wisconsin had to do was to make a strategic decision. Do they do the cooking themselves? Or do they hire a chef and a crew to do it for them? And as is typical, the budget was tight, so there wasn't a lot of extra money. So I want to share with you a different model that they use, and it's one that we use across our partner states within NIC. The way that this model works is that the private sector, through a public-private partnership with the state of Wisconsin, the private sector does the investment up front. The solution is created, the marketing is done, the customer support, all of those things to go back to those requirements that are necessary in order to create that true visitor experience become on the private sector to do that initial investment. Wisconsin did their research and decided to move forward with what they call at the state level self-funded, and at the federal level it's called no-cost contracting, in order to move this forward. This model of delivery works at all levels of government. In the end, what Wisconsin got was a low-risk, high-reward relationship by really focusing on that public-private partnership. So let me tell you about a couple of unique things that come about when you start to include the public and the private, and then drawing in that outside visitor. So one of the things that's unique about Go Wild is the licensing and permit validation that's available today. So as you all know, a lot of times when you're getting outdoor licenses, you're still getting a separate piece of paper or something that you've got to keep track of, put it in your pocket. Wisconsin went to another step. They realized that one of the steps that's required is the driver's license verification. It gives them that legal compliance that we talked about. So now, if you're a state of Wisconsin resident, you can pull out your driver's license and the ranger will know what kind of license you have valid. Now, if you're an outside of Wisconsin visitor, there's still the conservation card that you can get. And as we know, a lot of folks like to keep their conservation cards. I know my husband does, he's got a whole pile. So that you can keep those as well. Another great thing was something I was not familiar with was this back tag or the one license permit. So this is literally a green stripe that had to be, the hunter or the outdoor folks had to wear on themselves that showed all of the permits, all of the licenses. It's bright green, it's pinned to the clothing like on the backpack. It lists all of the tags and licenses and permits. Now, this gets connected with all of the licenses and permits and is no longer required. More importantly, it connects also into the opportunity to put the harvest for what is taken out in the field. It allows the harvest to be done online as well. So now my favorite part. Let's look at what all this cooking got them. So in March of 2016, Go Wild was released. Wisconsin was certain that they were doing the right thing by improving the user experience, but really the best way to check it out is to look at what the data says. So here's the results. Go Wild now supports over 7.2 million accounts. That means that 7.2 million visitors have set up an account in Go Wild. They may be doing different things. Maybe they're coming as a one-time person. Maybe they're signing up for notices. But one of the things that's great is that out of that, 1.8 million unique accounts were set up that actually had a transaction. In the same 15 months, Go Wild has sold 3.5 million licenses, processed 2.8 million transactions, and had close to $82 million in sales. This is just in 15 months that the state has seen this happen. The other great thing we were talking about that consolidating is Go Wild can sell products. And so that becomes a tremendous value as well with the sales that go through. So Wisconsin likes to talk about that they now feel that they have the most comprehensive outdoor hunting and fishing recreational licensing system in the nation. But you know, the story doesn't end there. Just like when the meal is done and the dishes are done, you have to think about what's going to get cooked up next. And that's really where this partnership, this public-private partnership, and thinking about the visitor experience differently becomes so valuable. So tomorrow, we all know, the delivery needs to be through Alexa and Google Home. We're already seeing that in the solutions. Or maybe Governor Walker, who set up a virtual reality tour of the state of Wisconsin, is going to decide we need to pull in some virtual reality into it. Or what about the autonomous vehicles? How long until somebody's in an autonomous vehicle, which this is a legitimate autonomous vehicle, wanting to get their fishing license on the way to the lake? All of those things are going to be part of that new visitor experience. And the decision that Wisconsin has made in their business model about including the private sector into this allows them to be a step ahead in that process. So, before I end, I know that you're dying to understand, did the camping trip work out? Did I improve the visitor experience? Are there smiles unlike those pictures that I shared before? Well, I'll say the pictures talk for themselves. And the great thing about this is that hopefully that generation will now take the visitor experience, and with states like Go Wild and our other state, federal, and local partners that are really reaching out and focusing on the visitor experience, they'll be looking forward to what they can do as well. Thank you.